All right, man. Good afternoon. A little bit earlier than what we normally do, man, but hopefully we kind of get some people to come in, man, and join us a lot more from coast to coast. This is the Unfiltered Kings podcast. I'm your host, James Hester. I do have two of my other three hosts that'll be joining us tonight. I'll let them introduce themselves first. Frankie, if you want to say what's up to the people.
What's up, people? You know what it is. Hope y'all enjoying y'all day.
All right, right. And last but not least, man, the only female on our crew, Miss Diana.
Hi, good evening. Hope you guys had a good evening. Welcome to our first early live. So hopefully we have a lot of people that come in and tune in as we talk to you.
Man, look, this is going to be an exciting one, man. Give a little time to kind of get some people in here, so to speak. But look, man, I want to get some breaking news, some great news, man. This is definitely a labor of love, but we definitely have some traction going. We want to share with the community. If you haven't seen it already on our page, we are now officially on Spotify, Spotify, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Now that is a huge deal. So I'm hoping with some R5s and love and like buttons that's going on. But no, it's definitely been a long time coming. We are season 3. This is episode 3. And so now you can go back and watch season 1 and season 2 and even season 3 on there, even from last week. Like we lost Frankie, I hope we'll get him back. And so, yeah, man, we're on Spotify now. You can just search Unfiltered King podcast. We will be on Amazon podcast, not Amazon app. I keep getting them mixed up. Apple podcast here probably in the next 2 weeks. But yeah, we feel that's a huge step in the right direction. And so if you don't catch it here on live, if you don't catch it on YouTube, don't worry. You'll always have it. It'll be up a day after the live recording where you can go back and catch the show. So please go out there, like us, share us, follow us, and actually listen. When it's all said and done, the like button alone doesn't, it does us good, but listening to it actually does a lot better. And so if you guys could celebrate us on that and really support us on that, we are greatly appreciated. Now, tonight, I think we have a great topic. Of course, Unfiltered Podcast, man, this is where men and women try to talk to each other, not at each other, And so tonight's topic is what's a woman's idea of safety and security? Man, is the thought process the same? Is it different? Do men and women look at it as the same? Where do some of these ideals come from, right? And are they healthy? Are they sustainable, right? And so we'll try to dive into it, and we won't try to put too much pressure on Diana. We definitely want to lend our voice with her being a female and kind of peer into the mind of women as a gender, and maybe it's something that we as men can sit back, learn from. Maybe it's something that we can add on to. So tonight's episode is a very, very important topic. Like I said, what's a woman's idea of safety and security? In a world where it's often unpredictable, we want to delve into the diverse perspectives and insight from women of all walks of life. And I think that's the thing that we sometimes find out. Sometimes we think things are so cookie cutter, but the reality is, we've talked about this a lot, you all on the podcast, background, culture, all these things kind of shape how we think. And so we just want to kind of understand from women what it is and what do they think safety and security is, and if there's more to it. So I'll just start off with Diana, of course, being the female representative here. When women, and of course you can't speak for all women at one time, but when the term safety and security is mentioned by women in general, what all does that cover? What all does that coincide? Let's start there.
Yeah, so when we're talking about safety and security for a woman, and again, I can't speak for all. So, how I perceive that to be is maybe three to four ways, right? So emotionally, mentally, physically, and then spiritually. So basically, all that encompasses, what allows a woman to kind of soften herself, trust that her partner, in a sense, is going to show up for her in all those ways. Obviously, not all at one time, right? We can't expect our partners to give us meet all those four things simultaneously. But as time goes on and as you communicate more with your partner and you learn your partner more, you can establish a baseline of what that looks like. On top of that, too, with men noting that they are providers, a lot of times they just all stop at financial, right? Not remembering that we also need to be covered mentally, physically, emotionally, and also spiritually as well. So that's kind of the baseline of what most women are looking for when they say, I want to feel safe and secure. It's basically that big umbrella of the provider, the protector, right? But under the umbrella, our safety and security comes from, our emotional, our emotional needs being met, our mental needs being met, our physical needs being met, and then spiritually. So under that umbrella, those are the things that we are looking for when we're talking about safety and security. As long as, some of those things are being met, I believe that a lot of women would feel more at home if, some of those needs were actually being met.
So okay. So I think that gives us a good framework, right? And a good foundation. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
what we're going to try to do is kind of slice this up, right? Because the reality is, we know we blessed to have Diana, but everybody don't think like Diana, right? You know what I'm saying? That's why she's the queen and the crew.
Yes.
But that definitely is a great platform, I think, in all actuality, right? But the reality is, do women really include those other components in the beginning? Because it was interesting you said some we as men, we're thought as protectors and things of that sort. So what I'm getting at is that if that is the reality, and it's definitely nuanced, right? Like the things you said, emotional, spiritual, physical things of that sort.
Right.
Then why does it sometimes come across like it really is about finances, and really those other things come across like they're a far second, even if they're wanted at all? Like, I'll say this and I'll turn it back over to you. Even if it means compromising those other things, that they're really not. I'll put up with not having those things if the money there, because I think from there, then we as men can kind of talk about how we connect in, maybe in a healthy or unhealthy way, by being a false sense of support by placating that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
If you can talk a little bit about that, Dana. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be you, but just pretty much as your experience as a woman in general. Why is it that there are times where it seems like quite frankly, the finances the end all be all?
So I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. Are you asking that the financial is the end all be all for the women, or in the man for the man?
In this case, I'm talking about the women, because you mentioned a lot of things that women in general look for. But there is a lot of reality, and I think, some men, and again, y'all, to our audience, understand that we have context when we're having these conversations. We're not talking about the a-holes, crazy people, like,
right.
You'll never satisfy them and understand them. What I'm talking about is a healthy man and a healthy woman from whatever background. There does seem to come across a perception that those other components you ask for is either not as important or not important at all over finance. And so that's what I'm
Okay.
trying to steer the conversation. How is the expectation greater than the reality?
So that could kind of just be based off of how someone was raised, right? So a lot of times you have to look at how you were raised and what it looked like, um to kind of formulate, what you would need when you become an adult and you branch out and have your person. So most homes, are were built on, daddy got the money, the father has all the money and the mom just kind of sits pretty, essentially. So
Mhm.
depending on the background that a person comes from, the environment that they were raised in will dictate what would become most important to them when they became an adult. And then by trial and error, unfortunately, you would kind of be able to foresee, what was important for you at the time. A lot of times money is the the motivator for most, because they didn't really, I guess, come from it, in a sense, weren't taught that, yes, it is nice to be with somebody who is, financially driven, right? But we all know that everybody that's wealthy isn't as generous as you would, like them to be. So I think we would just have to look at how one was raised, and that would determine why the motivational factor is money. I mean, like, who doesn't want to have money? Who doesn't want to be secure, in a space to where they can just kind of do whatever they want to do, or, be able to take care of, their family, with, the boatload of money that is being presented to them, by their person. I don't think anybody just kind of wakes up and is like, I'm cool with, not having a person that, could fund or, financially take care of, a household, because the stressor of that, alone in itself, could deteriorate a person too.
So I kind of want to go back to something you said, and Frank, I know you always talk about this, is because again, they're all important, right? But I think we have to. What I want to try to do is expose a part of this topic that we often don't talk about, especially in our Black community. When we're talking about upbringing and things, so everybody's right, no one's wrong. Do
Right.
as I say, no, I do. I can go on and on and on. So we never
Right.
get to any accountability, right? Because we know this thought
Yes.
process didn't just kind of pop out, like it didn't
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah.
fall out. And so, Frank, if you can kind of speak on it, I know, of course, you're, of course, it goes without saying you're not a woman, but what I wanted you to talk about is how, again, we're talking about that influence of child rearing or being taught something, how much it plays an effect on us, right? Because to Diana's point, money, 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 bills, and this and that. Well, that's important, but when you start making it way more important, the other ones fall off. And so if I just learn that to just master that one, right? And that's what I've been taught, and that's what I
Mm-hmm.
see. Hey, we
Right.
got a place, we got food in our house, but we arguing, cussing each other out. We fighting
Mhm.
on each other, we cheat. Hey, but we got food, we got a nice car, right? Unless no one wants to own that, right? But I'm hoping everybody can look in that proverbial mirror. Is there some dangers, Frankie, when we're talking about that child that being brought up and taught the wrong way? I guess that's if you could just briefly speak on that part of being taught wrong from an early age and the influence once you're adult. Now I'm gonna go and just try to apply that because hey, that's what I've been taught, just like my name.
Yeah, man. Think of it as like building a house, man. And it's not just the women. It's sometimes it's how men were taught too, or what they seen or perceived through the relationship of their parents or whoever they coveted in that, has these two have a good relationship. So, you know, that's what we tend to do. We talked about this last episode, Diane, I believe. It's like finding what you think of a good relationship role model type figure is, you know. So we look at these things, but the ground floor when you're building this house is always going to be what? Money, stability.
Right.
Money buys you food, nourishment, shelter. It has a plethora of uses, so that's why most people tend to make that the ground floor. Now then you start building, you put your foundation down, then you start building your house and everything else around it. Now you can go with cheap labor or what they call building grade quality stuff, you know, because that's what happens when you start building up a whole neighborhood of houses. You don't tend to get good quality stuff. You get builder grade stuff because you got 6, 7, 8 more houses to build. You know what I'm saying? So let's look at it like this.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let's look at it like this. So now you got the house built. Foundation was there to begin with because that's the first thing you need. So money. That's what you built your foundation on. Now, you know, you 5, 6 years in that house, you know, suddenly you'll see a little stress fracture line in the wall or something. You get that patched up. You know, some of the piping is getting old, so you got to patch that up. Something wrong with the sink, you got to patch that up. Not knowing that if you don't take care of this foundation too, you know, that causes all the small stuff that's happening to your house. So rain's going down there, you know, other stuff, weather, plethora of stuff, man, that leaky pipe that's at the bottom of there. All this stuff causes the foundation to deteriorate and brittle over the time. And while you're patching up stuff in that house, you keep forgetting about this foundation. And that lets you know that your foundation was built faulty. So that belief of money should be the foundation sometimes doesn't work for those relationships because it's steady deteriorating at everything else, which makes little stuff happen in front of you where you're not seeing the bigger picture of what's happening for your foundation, if that makes any sense.
And you know, I kind of like the example that you gave, and I want to kind of hone it back in for our audience because here's my thing. Even if you're looking at that example of a house building, yeah, it takes finances, but are you even placing the finances in the correct place, right? Because here's the thing, we say finances is important, but are we talking about just material things, right? How many of us go through things that affects the relationship? Do we make mental wellness important? Do we invest resources in getting help here to even be compatible with the person, right? Or are we just talking about resources just for the material things? And so I think that's the question for tonight is that, okay, if we say all the other things are needed, well, are they needed in the beginning? Are they talked about in value from the beginning? Or if we're going to extrapolate and say, hey, money and finances, then I think we have to healthily look at that and say, okay, what do we mean when we say finances? Because here's the thing, if you're single, you know you have to live and pay bills. So to me, I've never understood why theoretically when you come into a relationship, like that's a new nuanced and hard thing. Like, well, you were both existing beforehand, right?
Yeah.
But kind of going back to what Diana was saying is that upbringing. What influence do you all think that has on the relationship within itself? Let's just say, you know, for the sake of this argument, that the woman has this expectation of safety and security that's obscured or wrong. What type of stressors or issues do you think that brings to the table just in a relationship?
You're asking You're asking what type of stress it would bring if, for the woman who wants safety and security.
Well, when it's not understood or conveyed the correct way, like when the correct expectation and understanding of what that means is not conveyed. So in other words, let's just say you have one where it's all about money. It was all about material things with me. Like that rest of those things wouldn't do. What type of stress, just off the top of your head, do you think that just puts on a potential healthy a relationship that you want to be healthy in?
So if a person is, so if the relationship started and it was based off of, money, and later on down the line money starts faltering, I'm pretty sure there's gonna, you would hope that the person would communicate to the partner. You get what I'm saying? Like, all right, I'm seeing, that our money is, going out faster than we can, like, bring it in. And like try to figure out like how to, like, hone in on that and rectify that scenario. But most of the time it doesn't happen like that. People
Right.
just start lashing out and, just kind of, belittling the partner, or a lot of resentment starts to build. And now we're looking at other places and other things to fulfill what is being lacked in our relationship, because we didn't take the time to 100% communicate appropriately to our partner, on both ends, to in that scenario, because one partner could have been the breadwinner, right? And told the other partner like, hey, I got it. Don't worry, everything is great. So that's the safety and security, right? For that moment. Because the partner says that, hey, we're good. I'm going to make sure we're straight. I'm going to take care of us. So at that point, that person is feeling safe and secure because their partner says 100% they got it. Next thing you know, the partner loses their job. God forbid, right? Job gone. Now, money is tight. So now that safety and security that you told that person that they were gonna have, now it's starting to diminish because you're not keeping up. Unfortunately, you're end of the bargain because you told me from day one that, I'm saying, you got it. I don't have to worry about X, Y, and Z. So I'm over here thinking that, my safety and security is great. But where the partner that trusted the breadwinner for the safety and security faltered at is there was no safety net.
Yeah.
So
I think in those two places, that's where I'm trying to get in the conversation, because a lot of times people might ask, well, does safety security, right? Like, people start to defend these things as if the conversation saying they're not important. That's not what's being said. I think oftentimes in our English language, we say one thing, but we're really meaning something else. And we just don't say it because it's not polite to say it, right? I don't want to be looked up in a certain way. And so, to your point, when we're talking about the dynamics of how it can affect a relationship or erode a relationship between men and women, it sits unfair expectations. Because let's be honest, even on your job or anywhere else, and even in your own personal budget, right? Let's just say if you were single and you lose your job, you don't quit having safety and security. You downsize. Things get tight, but you don't throw yourself away. You don't become the problem, right?
Sometimes.
It doesn't mean you need to go sit on the couch if that's the case. No, but let's be honest, sometimes it feels that way. But the point that I'm trying to make, I think sometimes we put that one so far up on the mountain that we don't realize when it's affected, it only feels a lot more detrimental because we got it so far up from the other one. Because think about something you said down from an emotional standpoint. We always talk about emotional intelligence. Well, if you put that up there along with the finances, I'm just giving this for example. Well, now there's more understanding.
You also got to understand too, it's up there on the mountain. But think about, like, back in the day, what your parents used to say is it a want or a need? Now, I think when in relationships, the need part gets confused. Well, no, the want part gets confused because when you go in a relationship, it's things that you want. When as men, when we look at certain females, it's things that they want. They want probably like a fur coat. They want diamond earrings. They want a nice car, Benz or whatever the latest car. They want to see you in these things, but do you need it? Is that what you need? Is that what the relationship needs? Things like okay, if I'm providing, me and my wife have kids, this, that, so I need a house. I need shelter. Okay, I got a family. I need food. Bam. Okay, with this family, I need to clothe my family and keep the house in order and fixed. Bam. Now, where we get misconstrued are those wants. Okay, yeah, we need clothing, but yeah, we want Gucci, Fendi, Prada. We want Nike, Adidas, and whatever. But can we afford it? Yeah, I could go to a shoe carnival and get some Nikes, but then hey, nah, I ain't wearing that. I mean, this goes with your kids too. You know, they feel like I'm gonna get clown. We're gonna get clown. It's gonna be like this. It's gonna be like that. Well, I can't get you that Benz, baby, but I can get us a minivan, or you know, I could put you in a Kia. What I look like pulling up in the Kia, blah blah blah, da, 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 da. Then you know, and this is where the infighting comes in because now we're going separate paths. Instead of focusing on the needs, it's more of what the wants are, and that's why money can be a finicky. Money and finance can be a finicky thing in this thing that we call relationship.
But what I'm still trying to do, and I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. Notice still we're just talking about money because from the onset, it's more than that, right? It's the emotion.
Yeah.
So notice how much energy, and I'm glad we're not scripted, we're being real, but notice we're getting into the nuances still on one topic.
Yeah, not real.
Which to me shows we subconsciously put more over there, and maybe if we held them all of the same, because what I was saying, if Dana's emotional well-being is just important for her safety and security, right? Then even when I lose a job, before we're talking about downsizing, different clothing lines, things of that sort, if I can't provide her the emotional stability of allowing her to tell me how she feels, and she allows me to tell her, hey, babe, this is what's going on right here. Hey, here are some things we're going to tighten up. Then it don't matter anyway, right? Mm-hmm. It's just about the one point, which we all go through things. So unless we can guarantee that, hey, we're going to be balling forever, here's the point. Why don't these other parts ever come up in the conversation? Even to the point where it's like the finances seem like, and even in your illustration, they dominate these other parts, right?
Yeah.
Even from a physical standpoint, you know, if you love someone, let's just say if they, God forbid, get injured or whatnot, physical disability or whatever, you quit loving them. Yeah, it's gonna be tight, but you mean you really going to be concerned about that person's well-being, or well, it's the finance, well, it's a little bit too much. Now it's on the hourglass. So I guess that's my thing. Why do you think we put so much emphasis on one aspect when we're saying, and again, we're still talking from a woman's standpoint, because I think this is going to help expose something in us men. That's why I'm still here. If the reality of it is all these things are important, why do you think it's so easy to default again just on the finance, and we can understand and then drill down into that and not the other components?
Because love doesn't pay the bills.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. And see, and even in that statement, that's so unfortunate, but that's a whole nother podcast, because to me, it shows that we've lost the value and meaning of what love is. Like, we literally separated the two. It's like, well, if you love someone, it should pay the bills, right? Because you don't want to see that person struggle. And keep in mind, but if we were single, we were taking care of each other's self. So why is it a problem now when if you have help, if you got commitment, if you got the person you have? Like, I just never understood that. Like, you're coming from a point to where you took care of those things by yourself. How does it get to the actual point? And to your point, Diana, is it the fact that we don't think about unlearning some bad traits and behaviors? We just kind of rush in and accept it for what it is. Because I heard that statement before. Love don't pay the bills. Why? I
So,
know go ahead.
so so when I say love doesn't pay the bills, I mean, yes, when you're single, right, 100%. And just think about this too, right? Because now we have to get with the times. You know, obviously, most people can't live off of one income, and most certainly, sometimes two incomes ain't even it
Ain't cutting it.
anymore. You get what I'm saying? Back in the day, you get what I'm saying? There was a point in time where, you know, you could afford certain things off of one income, right? The man went to work, the woman stayed home, took care of the kids, and everything was la 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 la, right? Then things shifted, right? Because now women could work, they could open their own bank accounts, make their own money. You know what I'm saying? So things started to like shift, right? So
Right.
now it's women's rights are in place. So now women are climbing the ladder. You know what I'm saying? So some households are altering where women are the breadwinners, and you know their partners not so much. So
Let me hold
everything has. I'm sorry.
So let me hold $1 sometime. No, go ahead.
I ain't say all that.
I tried to call it. I tried to catch on camera.
But so when I say love doesn't pay the bills, I'm talking about and within the times we're in. Like, because at the end of the day, of course, you do want to make sure that you know your partner is good. That you know if your partner falters, you're going to catch them 100%. But guess what? Some households, when they come together, most people are like, "Hey, babe, you ain't gotta work no more. I got it." So what does the other partner do? Oh, I gotta work. Easy day. I'm tired of working anyway. So thank you. You know, and in scenarios such as that, um, the one partner is working, and the other partner is kind of at home, you know, taking care of whatever they're taking care of. If they have kids, they're taking care of kids and
Take
all
care of the
those
house.
things.
Yeah.
Then the
Yeah.
working partner comes home, right? Now then the working partner is exhausted because they've been at work all day, mentally, physically, emotionally, you know, kind of dragging themselves all
Right.
day
Yeah.
and night at work, drained to make sure home is good. They come home, now their partner who's at home is also emotionally, physically, and mentally splattered out because they're at home taking care of the kids. You know what I'm saying? Making sure the house is clean, cooking, the kids are good, homework, I don't know, whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
So that is when communication has to be a strong suit. Like you said, emotional intelligence should come into play because both partners at any given moment can both be on the same spectrum of, oh, I'm exhausted. You know what I'm saying? I'm mentally, physically, and emotionally like burnt out. But that's
Yeah.
when either one party or both parties are going to come together and they're going to kind of communicate about whatever the issue is so they can rectify it, which again goes to, okay, now your physical needs are being met, your emotional needs are being met, your mental needs are being met because one or both parties are communicating to each other what the issue is, and they're coming together as a as partners in a partnership to make sure they can keep each other afloat.
Yeah. And you guys, if you're just now tuning in, what's a woman's idea of safety and security? Episode 3 of season 3. We're just kind of diving into the thought process of this. And so, what I want to just kick the door in, right? Because I think on one end there's some great information for and great knowledge for those who are trying to do it what's right. But what we try to do on this podcast is not necessarily judge people, but you take a look at yourself in the mirror, right? Sometimes it just comes from a selfish act. Let's just be honest, right? We know in 2025, we know this man who are in office more than any time in the world, it takes a lot, right? Just to live. But I think a lot of times, just because it's trendy, just because it sounds good, just because of the expectation of genders and their gender biased worlds, right? That all these things go out the window. And it really arrived to the point to where, like I said before, it's like no one wants to say they're selfish, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'll low-key do the selfish act. And then what I'll do, I put that gray area in there, I'll justify it. And I think that's the unfortunate thing when I said in turn, kind of walking up to men, because now we have to put ourselves in an accountability standpoint and ask ourselves, do we take that nonsense and develop toxic masculinity within ourselves? Right? We'll take on that narrative and we'll feel some type of way, oh, that makes me a man. But we know we suffer in silence also. We know stuff not sweet also. We know we're going through health issues also, or quite frankly, we know we just don't like it. But that let's be honest, and this is not being disrespectful, but this is just the ideal of some men to keep that trophy wife, or to keep that trophy girl, or to make that image up, or because she provides for me sexually, for all these things, we'll go and reinforce this false sense of what safety and security is. And that's why sometimes as men, we just got to be real. We don't give a damn about the other pieces. Because if you don't make me jump through all these hoops just for this one, and guess what? Once I'm done that, you owe me. This is the mindset, right? So you see how this mindset, if we don't ever talk about it, like you saying, Dana, it can create a toxic behavior without us even being at each other on some regular life ish. Who can control losing their job? Or who can control, hey, if that's what, go ahead, Frankie.
No, hey, we talked about this the other day, Jay, when we was watching the news, man. And it's just like that, man. You only see the wins, or you only see what you're successful in. And the sad part about it is when you're coming up, you as a kid, you see this one thing, you see this piece of paper being passed to a cashier, or this card being used, or this. So that's where this comes into play heavy too. And as men, we rely on that because and women too. It like Diana said, money don't pay the bill. Money makes the world turn. So say that partner does get sick, you have to have money to keep paying it to your insurance, to keep him upkept if he's bedridden or if she's bedridden in this hospital. You gotta figure out how to budget. You gotta figure out how to do all this stuff. But like I said, you only hear the wins. You don't see what's going on behind the scenes, or you don't tend to want to speak about what's going on behind the scenes because that's too stressful. That'll stress you out. And we don't talk about that more in relationships where, you have to go back and like, hey man, how did y'all go back and ask your parents or something? How did y'all get through this, and this? And they'll tell you like, man, it was rough. We had to cut corners here. We had to do this. We couldn't buy the stuff that we used to buy. We couldn't do this. Nobody wants to talk about that part. They just see the successful part or the winning part where we were up. But when we can't comprehend, or we can't, or some of us don't know how to survive those down periods.
Well, Frank, I think sometimes, and again, this is not painting a broad brush, right? A lot of times we can't talk about that which we don't care about. And I think a lot of times when we talk about mama and them and big mama and them, sometimes I think we celebrate and call that success when that was just functioning in your dysfunction.
Get by, yeah.
So my whole thing, I guess what I'm saying is that if on the onset you're telling me that all these things are important, which they are, right? Those are human things, but definitely know even the Bible says a woman is a weaker vessel, meaning like Diana said, yeah, she makes money, all that, but that means that there is a provision and safety security just built in us as men. But I think a lot of time men don't honestly get to operate in that, because if you only want and expect one, they're just like your job. If your job allows you to sit back and cush all day, let's just be real, and you got a cush job, what we gonna say? That's a good job, man. I like you gonna stay there forever. Now, if they come in one day and have the audacity to ask you to do your job, if you done that so long, you're gonna look at them like they tripping.
Yeah.
And I think it's something to be said in that, because even like in your conversation, we do not talk about the emotional trauma of mama and grandmama and daddy and grandmama, because guess what? It have nothing to do with the fact that it was successful. They were successful. They didn't deal with it because they traded that off. Well, just the material. And I don't care what you're struggling, doing good, or whatever. You see what I'm saying? And so that's the point, that mental wellness turned into mental illness, and that get passed down.
Yeah.
Even when you're dealing with the financial piece of it, and this is just how I believe. In 2025, if you with someone together, finance should be a given. If it's not a given, hey, we need this and we ain't trying to get it, then it's like, get off around that person, right? Like, what are we arguing about? We need food, shelter, and things of that sort.
And to clear up,
what I think was more important is, again, because we assume, and we've never, if we really just take the time and look at it, we've said the right things. Oh, the physical well-being is doing it. Well, guess what? Mom and dad and them got the cars and all of the bills paid, but it's abuse in the household. Hey, you know what? Yeah, the emotion is there, and yeah, I want somebody's emotion stay, but guess what? I come from a household where you're calling each other everything except a child of God.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So the reality of it is, what I'm trying to do is expose us really as human beings, and say, as much as we make this as a man or a woman thing, and yeah, there are things that women are taught wrong, which in turn we hold on to. And to me, what I'm getting at, as a safety and security man, and to me, I'm just gonna say a man of God, we should be able to sit down to our woman and help her heal on that. Can't make her. But let's say if she's learned that the wrong way, right? Let's say if she does not identify, one of the harshest things that hurts my ears when I hear women, for whatever reason, B. That's a learned behavior, though. So instead of us trying to live up to this expectation, when I'm getting that, Frank and Dana, wouldn't it be the safety and security mindset of taking care of this woman's emotions? I said, hey, baby girl, now that's not it. That comes from a toxic place. Here's a healthier way of doing that. Because a lot of time, what's unfortunate, a lot of times these topics are only exposed, guess what? When finances become an issue.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Well, and you talked about it, right, Frank, about behind closed doors. And unfortunately, that's what we as Black people, and I'm just going to speak to us. I apologize for that, but I digress. We have to get out of this subconsciousness that just because we can function, that's right and good, and we put that out, but all the trauma and dysfunction harms behind the scene. That's why we can't talk about it.
Yeah, and that's what I was alluding to, man. That's what I was alluding to, not to cut you off. Like, as a child, you tend to get cut out of seeing the background. Mm-hmm. And that's why, some people are not prepared when they grow up to deal with that, because and as parents, you probably don't want your kid to see you struggling. You want to tend to leave that between you and your wife, or you and your husband, you know what I'm saying? But it also could be a bad thing too, because they need to see that in order for them to grow up to see how they can handle it themselves, or have a good picture of, okay, well, mom and daddy did this when they were going through this.
But quick question though, here's the thing, and we still talking about and this is good. We don't want them to see us struggling financially. What about when they see us cussing each other out?
Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay.
What if they see when daddy gone, because daddy trying to her and mama?
And my thing is, some like it starts off faint, and that's how falling outs always do. You start yelling and then you forget the kids there, and then they wake up, they peek in because they heard a little bit, but then you close the door. But they heard just enough. Yeah. But I get where you're coming from though.
These are the things why I'm saying we have to be honest and transparent. Kind of goes back again to the foundation that Diana set for us. It is not enough for us as people to know what's right. Because to me, that's a hypocrite. Let's call it what it is. When I know what's right, but I'm really not practicing it. And when I find out that I'm wrong down and what I justify it, right? Kind of like the podcast we talked about before. Okay, some of these things I learned from my upbringing.
Yeah.
But it don't give me a justification to do you wrong. So sometimes to keep from doing you wrong, I gotta call that spade a spade. And if you hear throughout this conversation, and I think this would be consistent with most people, and if you guys want to chime in, we'll definitely put you guys' comment on the screen and respond to it. So thank you, Jawan Arnold. I see you came in. Good evening to you. Want to make sure that I speak to the people who are in. I'm gonna try to kind of multitask, but we got to quit making excuses and then pointing the finger at the other gender. That's what I'm talking about on the premise of our podcast, where we can't talk to each other because we're talking at each other. And we got to that point where we're talking at each other because we never dealt with anything, right? And I think that's the main thing. And so that's why the question is not necessarily to beat up on women or expose women, but I do think there is something to be said that a lot of times that ask is not there in the recognition. The ask is just what I've been taught to say, but in reality, I've made this the only need. Well, no, that's needed in this word. That goes without saying. But look at all these other places that I think that we don't realize, that physical, that emotional, even the spiritual, right? Sometimes we'll just take that out the way just because we don't want to have any accountability. We want to do what we want to do, right? And I think in turn, that's what puts men in a position to where we start believing and buying into this toxic masculinity. And we, to your point, okay, even if we quote unquote lead on that one aspect, well, kind of like Diana said, what if she need help with the kids? Or what if she just needs someone to talk to? A lot of time we can't identify that because we've honed in on this one piece right here. Because if I can do that, that makes me a man. That's it. You know what I'm saying? That's where my pride comes from. Look, I take all the bills, but is your woman happy?
Mm-hmm.
Can she talk to you? Can she hold you accountable? Can she tell you why you got all the bills paid? Hey, it's a better way of doing that, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times we as men, we put this false sense of pride on ourselves, and now we start operating in it. And to the women out there, well, why men don't provide safe security? Well, we put ourselves in a position to give you what you literally are really asking for, and we drop those other components, we don't get to practice them. We don't get to deal with those other components. And as long as you happy, because you know what I'm saying, you got name brand, you're going out to eat, and you heard, and that makes you quote unquote happy. Just because one day you come around and say, okay, now I need these other components. Because I've already shut those out. I've already tuned those out.
Mm-hmm.
And my masculinity has already said that being a man is just, hey, you're happy. So let me just keep giving that one thing, right? I'm just going to keep giving that one thing over and over and over and over and over. What I want to turn my attention to now, and again, if you guys just joined us, what's a woman's idea of safety and security? We kind of went off on the one main point is that a lot of time it's based on a person's background thinking. What do they look at safety and security is? And we've identified that a lot of time we say all this other stuff, but really it's really the main thing, money. And so these other things fall dormant until we have an issue later on in the relationship. And then all of a sudden, we got to start practicing something that, we haven't talked about in the beginning. But Dan, I want to kind of come back to you now because now we're kind of transitioning back to the healthy sense of it, of what that safety and security looks like. We're going to park the finances. And I'm glad that we talked like we did because I wanted our audience to see how much it really does override those other topics you were talking about, Dana. But I want to kind of get back to those other components because they are important, if not just as much. I want you to talk about some of the effects of a woman when in the lines of safety and security when she's not heard. When she feels she's not heard, when she feels she's not seen or seen for the wrong reason. Hey, you look good, that's it. Or just, the sex aspect. But what are some of the dangers that you feel that a woman takes on and has to deal with when she's not heard by the person that she's partnering with?
So, I think when it comes to someone not being seen or heard, I think it kind of messes with their esteem a little. It kind of makes them feel small and maybe invisible. So you would hope that the partner would communicate to, which is crazy that we would even have to do, but sometimes you have to do these things because people get complacent, they get comfortable. So a lot of times the things you want them to acknowledge, like, oh, you look good today, or I saw that you got your hair done, or whatever. Some of those things that you are used to them, communicating to you about or expressing to you those things, depending on, their mindset and what's going on with them, sometimes those things may take a back seat. So if you communicate to your partner, you know, however you're feeling in that moment about the scenario, maybe it wouldn't get to the level of, you not feeling like you feeling invisible, or you feeling alone, because then resentment will build up, right? And then once resentment is there, it can become a a nasty, scenario, or a kind of a toxic environment, to where that one party is kind of, I would say, like, nasty to their partner, because they are neglecting their partner emotionally, or, you know what I'm saying? So I think in scenarios such as that, it's important that, one, you don't get comfortable or complacent, and three, that you communicate to kind of bring your partner back into that space, or figure out, essentially what is, pulling your partner away, to where that those things are not as high on the list as they used to be.
And Dan, I so appreciate you by owning that space, because I think a lot of times, kind of going back to something Frank alluded to, a lot of times it's not that the conversation is hard to have, we just don't want to hear it. Because I think when you hear someone express how you make them feel in a negative, unpolite way, it's hard for us to own that at that point in time we can be an ugly good person. Or,
Right.
well, ugly person, we're being called out on our ish, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now we double down. So to me, my word, I think that's low hanging fruit when it's just, well, we don't want to communicate, we don't talk. I think a lot of time that's unintentional. I think a lot of time, my bad, I think that's intentional. Because if you listen to what Dana said, could you imagine, and I think we all grown, how many other issues, again, keep in mind, we got the money, the bills paid, but with the other ones not, look how many other issues just on her side, on the woman's side. Let's be on that can introduce, open up the doors.
Yeah.
Because one thing I realized, if somebody wants attention and you don't give it to them, we don't like talking about this, somebody else come along and give it to them.
That's it.
Let's right? Like, let's not be cute. Well, you should know, if you ain't giving it. I like steak. If you don't cook steak, that don't mean I don't like steak.
Right.
Right? That just means I recognize you ain't gonna cook steak.
Cook steak.
Hey, and I try to put it plain, because I think, again, we spend so much time, you all, as men versus women, that we don't realize we introduce a lot of these problems ourselves. And then we double down, like Frank alluded to, we don't talk about it.
No.
Like, that's scary. I done isolated, for example, I done isolated Diana where she don't feel the safety and security that she can open up to me. I'm not listening. My mind is somewhere else. She's sitting by herself. She's still an attractive woman going out in this world and whole 9 yards. And I'm sitting over here. Now, is it wrong to cheat? Yes. I'm not, by no means am I justifying it. But what I'm saying, I cannot be shocked if now we go from just having a conversation, not being able to talk about this, that just because as a man, I think because I'm providing all this other stuff, now I have to deal with the fact, well, she's getting what she wants from someone else, not because she's a bad person, because you failed to provide it.
Right.
And I think a lot of time we as men, again, cheating is wrong. Don't get it twisted. I came from a marriage to where I got cheated on. By no means I'm saying it's a pleasant feeling. But what I'm saying is how many of these issues are we creating by not having a real conversation, kind of like what Frankie said. Hey, when I build that house, if I take care of that foundation, even when I have to make a few repairs, them just minor repairs. If I don't build it on a good foundation, house look good. But like Frankie said, oh man, the concrete is sliding over here and the pipes are busting over. Because why? I didn't take time to get the right foundation.
Yeah.
I was having brunch today, and long story short, this waitress, she was a 20-year-old lady, and she was just talking about whether she wants to be married, but her friends are pressing her into she should be dating people because she's young, she's 20 years old, and she will hold 9 yards. The point that I want to pull out of that is a lot of time we have these expectations, but we don't ask ourselves, where do we learn it? Because how can I expect my partner, women, I'm coming down your street, to allow me to express my emotions, but have you learn emotional intelligence? Men, how can you really say there's safety, security, and other aspects like the physical or like the emotion? Have you learned emotional intelligence? Or do we often do what we usually do? I want Diana to express her emotions like I express mine. Then I'm going to get pissed off because I'm not expressing my emotions like hers. And she sees the fact that I'm trying to change her into me. Who going to step back and, hey, let's learn this stuff, right?
Yeah, reevaluate. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's another thing. We have these expectations. It sounds good. Did we learn it for ourselves? Keep it a buck. Were you providing for yourself? Did you have conflict resolution when you were single? Or did you run for everything? Again, we talk about mom and dad and big mom and them, like Frankie said. We wasn't there to know what was behind the scene. Sometimes they didn't really deal. They just dropped it. Oh, well, I'll just go along. Because they believe in staying together more than how we throw people away these days. That don't mean they dealt with it in a healthy way, right? And so I appreciate you, down about opening up and talking about how some of this feeling of security, right? We're using the word, but everything doesn't just wrap your mind around just that material thing. And I want men and women to hear, men, we cannot keep priding ourselves on the fact that we can just do material. Because even if we can, watch this, Frankie, it's fool's gold. Because how often do you and I talk about some real stuff we going through in life that, man, it don't have nothing to do with money, but remember in the group text, me, you, my brother, and my son, we all put in there, and I asked the question, what are some of our greatest fears?
Greatest fears, yeah.
From my son at 22 all the way up to probably Carlos, all of us put fear of failure or not being able to provide.
Not being able to provide, yep.
Think about that. 22-year-old, my son is 22-year-old sophomore in Angelo State. But he's already formulated this sense of being a man is equivalent to providing. But even for self, just the material. Well, wait a minute. Make sure you take care of yourself emotionally also. What about your physical self? Are you keeping yourself in shape, right? So I think we have to put a premium back on actually, are we learning these things that we say that we actually want in life? How do we now? We kind of talked about some of the pros and cons, right? how we sometimes diminish some of these things when it comes to safety and security. Diana, if I can, and again, we're still picking your brain. How can we as men partner with women to create that more inclusive, safe environment? How do we do that? That's a little princess. She might have
Yeah,
something
you
to say.
heard her.
Hey, let me find out. You over there training the bomb? Say
that was like I was hoping you ignored that.
if Donna know on the screen, behind the screen, if the prince has something to say, she's overridden. But how do we get to that point? You know, we've talked about some things on both ends that I think we do better. Some of it's intentional, and again, y'all, we don't have the space on Unfiltered Kings podcast to talk about the dumb ish. As men, how can we create a more all-inclusive, safe place for you all as women?
So,
dang, we that bad now? Golly, I tried to land the plane lightly. She's like, where do you want me to start? Wait a minute.
No.
Hey, be glad that hand didn't come up and...
Right. Well, first of all, oh my God. And I know that is a loaded question, but just any particular place that you feel.
Yeah, so I believe that part of it is, I think men just need to understand themselves, and kind of what that looks like for them, in order for them to kind of formulate what they want it to be for their partner. Because if he can only see as far as in front of him, you get what I'm saying, then how is he going to surpass to see, to bring it to me? So, and that's comes from going to therapy. I always recommend people going to therapy. I think therapy is very, very, very important for all walks of life, at whatever level you see fit. But you have to know yourself, you know what I'm saying, in order to kind of, bring that to your partner. So, and then communication is going to be key in literally everything. I think that's part of it. Just a lot of times not knowing what to communicate or how to communicate can kind of alter, being a safe space for women, being that security for a woman. Because a lot of times it does equate to how much you can provide, but not just financially. You get what I'm saying? That's why I keep alluding to how I look at the umbrella. It's just not financial. You know what I'm saying? You have to show up in other ways. The safety and security is all up under that umbrella as well. And I think because it's taught that, as long as you got money, they'll keep coming. You get what I'm saying? Which in a sense is it could be very much true, but what you're gonna get is not essentially what you need. Because their own.
I'm sorry, but what I was saying, I think you are correct. I think money and resources only hide it or mask it. Or
right.
strings it along. It doesn't resolve. It doesn't take it away. It just, you don't have to deal with it as quick as probably someone who doesn't have as much, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
because that's
no. Go ahead.
Because if that's what you're leading with, you get what I'm saying, then of course you're gonna get a bunch of bad catches, and if that's what you're dangling, and somebody who doesn't necessarily have, what I'm saying, what you have, then of course they're going to want to take it. And then, kind of drown you in that. But what do you do when you have somebody who equals that to you? You know what I'm saying? That's when you 100% have to bring those other things to fruition, because now we both have that provider, that financial umbrella. Now so now that we both have that umbrella, now I need those other things. I want to see where you are emotionally. I want to see where you are mentally. I want to see where you are physically. How healthy are you for me if if we're equal on that level? Those other things, they're gonna have to show up, because you can't just say, "Hey, I have money," because now the woman's like, "Huh, guess what? I got it too." So what? So now what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where are we now? Because you know what I'm saying, we're both, you know, so I guess that's the other part to it. When you don't have it, of course it's gonna bring people who want it, but when you both have it, now what?
And let me speak to that also, man. And you made some excellent points, because I think we talked about this podcast before last, how in this world it's just so quick to throw people away. Do we stop to realize that sometimes we could be thrown away? And again, we know some knuckleheads out there, they should have been gone like yesterday's newspaper.
Yeah.
But do we sometimes realize that we could potentially be throwing away some damn good people only because the puzzle wasn't put together when we met, which the whole goal is to put the puzzle together, but I digress. We are throwing good people away, and I think that's why it's harder to find good people. We're throwing good people away in this proverbial trash heap, and everybody becomes damaged and damaged to the point where now, and I hear people say this, it's like I got to dig through the rubble of hurt people and see who's been hurt the least, and like, man, we throw people away so quickly. And I think, again, y'all, because we don't want to talk about this stuff. Like, it has gotten popular these days for us to not be intelligent, to not have conversations. We have to laugh and joke and be entertained all the time, right? And so in this mentality, we don't get to learn emotional intelligence, Frankie. Yeah, we've been through that. Yeah, we grew up, and yeah, that happened to us. But something Donna said on one podcast, even when it stirs in our face where it's a fork in the road, lose a good person or get your ish together. Go get some help.
Mm-hmm.
Look, it's just to castigate the person. Because I've settled in this mediocre mindset instead of wanting to learn. And I think that's the thing. Everybody in relationship these days want to show up.
They don't want to. They don't want to go through tough times. That's the
We're
thing.
good. No, even boy, that's true right there. But all of us, we want to show up. I know everything. See, I've dealt with my emotion. I know how it is and things that sort. Let's. Juwan put something. Juwan on it, man. Thank you for joining us, man. He said, men and women are looking for. There you go, man. Come on, man. Come in the room looking for finished products rather than work through those conversations that need to be had. Let's let that stay there for a minute. That's the point. And we live in this age of social media, a real man, a real woman. Who's perfect? See, Frankie, that's my problem with all due respect. When thinking mom and dad and grandma and them, no, they did their thing. We thankful and we ain't taking nothing from them. But we don't know behind the scene that everything went sweet and gravy. Whether they hid it from us, whether we just didn't see it, whether we were too young. But where is this assumption that we want a perfect product? I'm gonna tell you real as a man. If I'm perfect before I met you, I don't need you. What? So that sound ugly, do it. But now, if you want me to have everything together, cross my T's, dot my, what do I need you for again?
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So, Juwan, excellent point, man. Maybe we should change that mentality and allow each other grace, like Donna alluded to. Hey, do we get to talk about? Hey, you know what? I probably learned this wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is probably something, Frankie. We said with my homeboy, man, what if I just don't have the money? See, we don't talk about that.
Right.
What if that's just not my reality? Somebody got to clean the floors at McDonald's. That mean I can't be a good mate. That mean I can't be a good husband. I can't be a good wife.
Yeah.
That
Not real talk, man.
go to the McDonald's CEO. See, why do we talk about that? Because no one wants to see themselves down there like that. And low key, let's be real in our community. That's not a good mate, damn. And we
Right.
keeping it a buck. I'm too good for. Remember the bus driver one we had, Frankie?
Yeah.
See, we miss out on good people, not realizing that the goal is what Juwan is talking about. If we realize we're not finished product, but you know what? I pour a little bit in you, you pour a little bit in me.
Help build each other up, man.
Reciprocation, teamwork, man, the whole can be greater than what we both came from.
Yeah.
That's what it's supposed to be about. I don't want to be the same person that I was when I was single.
Right.
That's why I don't want to be single anymore. But Diana, that's why some people choose some reason. It's better to be single because if I get you and go down, I might well stay here with my single and just rotate. And that's ugly. Not saying that's right, but that's just a real harsh reality. Because the reality is, men, toxic masculinity, we're not finished products.
Right.
I don't care how much we can make our money, shine our car up, put jewelry on, money in our pocket, go out to the club, bottle. We will never be a finished product. And until we quit selling these women these wolf dreams and be able to stand on that, then we can't get upset that women put us in that position. So a great point, Juwan. We're all works in progress, and I think that should open our mind up to say, how can I better be? Like Donna said, and what does it sound like? Emotion intelligence. What's the first pillar? Self-awareness. How can I make myself better? Because I'm hoping if you really want to rock with me and you see me improving and you see me doing my thing, getting better, you'll want to partner with me.
Yeah, most definitely.
Throwing me away, man. We throw people away too quickly, and we just justify it too. You know, I had another question here, and again, Frankie.
Yeah.
What do you think are some barriers or some things that get in the way to keep men from effectively being safety and security? And again, not just the finances, but if we could speak to women, what do you think are some ideals, thought process, or behavior they have that keep us from being effective providers or providing that safety and security? What do you think some things that get in the way of that?
Ourselves, man. We have to get out our own way. Even in the relationship, and this also alludes back to the question that Juwan had posted. You know, men and women are looking for finished products rather than work through those conversations that need to be had. Like you said, those conversations need to be had. You can't always go in throwing out your successes. Like, yeah, I did this, I did that. No, we got to talk about, okay, yeah, this happened, and I couldn't do this. You have to have those tough conversations, and what I mean by ourselves is we have to get out our way to have that conversation. Yeah, we don't want to bring it up. Yeah, make it look bad. Yeah, we don't want to hear the criticism that comes with it. But it might not be bad criticism. Constructive criticism can be also uplifting too. To know that, hey, yeah, you messed up, but let's try it this way, that way, and this way. Instead of thinking that we're always gonna get bashed, like, yeah, you screwed up, yeah, it's your fault, this is that. That's gonna come with it too, but you still have to be able to communicate these things. I told my girl, a long time ago, I said, yeah, it ain't gonna be, all sunshine and rainbows. We're gonna have tough times, we're gonna get into arguments, we're gonna do that. But it's how we bounce back and get out those rough patches. That's really gonna, keep us together. Because you're gonna go through them. In a relationship, you're gonna go through them. But you have to be able to conversate, go through those tough spells, even have those arguments. Hopefully they don't get too far out of hand where you can both come back and say, yeah, it was like this, like that, and like this. So let's move on forward from this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But they have to be had, and we also have to step out our own way and our own insecurities and speak, instead of being afraid or scared of what the outcome will be, whether it be losing that loved one or And what I mean by losing, like separation, or if y'all can get through it and come out the storm even stronger.
And you know what? You brought up something, and if I could use this part of the podcast to talk directly to the women. Women, quit equating us being a real man or a man based on what's in our pockets. If you hear something over and over, and by no means am I taking the responsibility off us men, because we have to quit thinking that what makes us a man is what's in our pockets. But that fear that Frankie talked about, I don't think we get a space to talk about that enough, right? Because it's embarrassing, right? You know, you put out or what have you. When you're struggling, you're going through, and your worth as a man is based on your limitations, right? So now it's not about being into you and seeing you as you're now being compared. No man likes going through that, right? And so I think in order to bring some of these conversations to the forefront, as Diana and Frankie alluded to, we have to have some ask on both sides. Again, conversation to each other instead of at each other. No man wants to open up about something that personal when he's being belittled. And that's what it is. He's being belittled, right? If you cannot own or understand that at some point in time, their life changes, life happens, you know, like Dana alluded to, that it may mean to where that's one particular point of finance does not mean that I compromise my emotional protection of you, my spiritual protection of you, my physical protection of you. Sometimes that's just a transition in life. Most of us, we done lost a job, felt off, had to go out with it and come back with it. Like, we know what that is in our singlehood again. So when we together, again, to use that gender bias to punish each other, I think that does contribute, Frankie, to what you allude to why men don't open up and have that conversation, Dana. And so now where you all want to have the conversation, and it's like you're at a stalemate. And so now that's when those other things, like Dana was talking about, those other issues kind of creep in. And before you know it, one little issue, 5-minute conversation could have been had. And now y'all can't stand each other. And I think that's when you're opening up the door of the relationship to a lot of risk. What bears our face? And one last thing, I think also, as far as barriers as men, I think something we as men don't talk about, and we actually have a podcast that's coming up, man, where we're going to talk about this more in detail, just as the fellas. I don't think we realize how much stress and how much health risk we put on ourselves trying to keep this image of this, I got this one aspect of it. We don't even give ourselves time, Frankie, sometime to be there for each other, ourselves emotionally. Be there for ourselves spiritually.
High blood pressure, strokes, and heart attacks.
You cannot provide true, all-inclusive safety and security for anyone if you cannot do it for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's a reality that's not to indict men. Hopefully that is to inspire us to continue to learn. And I hope it also allows women to give grace, that they learn how to partner with that instead of more shooting it down, doing more harm than good. All right.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, we're going to stop right here. I want to make sure we have any other comments. Frank, if you can look through that for me. But we've been talking about a woman's idea of safety and security. You know, we've identified that there are some healthy ways of thinking, but then there are some wrong ways that have been learned through upbringing that, for whatever reason, has been learned the wrong way. But the reality of it is that we can sit down and have real conversation where we're not knocking each other. And then, like Diana alluded to, if the intent is not long term, what we doing anyway? Like if the whole idea is that when something happens and I don't get my way on her, what I heard, I'm out. You probably did me a favor anyway, right? Let's sit down. Let's learn some of these things. It doesn't always, as Frank brought up, it doesn't always mean because mom and daddy, grandma and them, it appeared that they did it the right way. That don't even mean that it's right. That don't give us a licensure, if you will, to say, hey, I don't need help with that, Diana. No, let's explore that also. You know, there's some things there, some traumas there that we probably didn't know. We want to thank you guys again for hanging in here with us. Thank you for tuning in. Keep in mind, you can see this full episode live on Spotify. You can listen to it on Amazon Music. You can also see it on our YouTube channel. It will always be there, I think, up to 30 days on our Facebook page. You can also join us on Instagram. You guys get out and support us. We greatly appreciate it. Not just hitting the like button, but also following us, being engaged in the conversation. Jawan, thank you so much, man, for being a part of our community. Hopefully, we said something that inspired you to come back and join us. But until then, man, look, we want to advise you guys, take care of each other. You know, I want to say this real quick. We know who's in office. You know, we don't talk about politics, but there are real things that are affecting real people. So where you can yell, cuss, and talk, man, sometimes use some grace, man. People are going through. And even if there are people in your household or in your families, man, that used to be good, check on these people a little bit more, man. It's some real things out here. And so I wanted to share that with you all. Thank you so much, Diana, for owning the position of speaking on behalf of women from a positive standpoint, and also some of those ways where we can just learn and get better. It's not a bad thing. Right? And then, Frankie, always, man, thank you for having conversations like we probably going to have right now, but then also lending our voice to helping. Let's put some accountability in there with it too. Again, This is Unfiltered Kings podcast. This is episode 3 of season 3. If there's none further, let's keep the conversation going. If you have more questions or comments, keep those going. We'll be checking on them. But other than that, we want to say thank you guys so much for joining us. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. And until then, we'll talk to you guys next week. Take care.
Peace.